When are you going to make another FIFA video? That's a question I had in a live stream recently, and this isn't exactly a FIFA video, but it's something along those lines. So, I've done the Stoke City vlogcast with Jan for the past season, and Jan's just busy doing her own thing right now, so she'll be back soon. But I thought to myself, well, what can I do that's FIFA related? And the simple answer was, let's do a prediction for the upcoming season. So, yeah, I'm going to do this with a little twist. I've gone on FIFA and I've just put in what the current squads are for the EFL Championship. So we've got the relegated teams from the Premier League, we've got the promoted teams from League One, and I've basically stripped all the players out who've left the club either via the end of loan spells or the end of contracts. And when there has been an addition, I've added them in. So, for instance, that Brentford have signed a midfielder, I've included him, but I haven't included potential signings for Stoke, for instance, who seem to be almost over the line, but haven't actually got there. So, anyone thinking that Lee Gregory might charge us up the league, you're not going to see that. Anyway, the idea is we're going to just put it through the simulator, we're going to just go through a career mode season, sim a whole season, and just see what comes out at the end. And from there I'm just going to discuss what happened, and we're going to just see how real it might be or might not be. Don't forget, it is FIFA, chances are it's not going to be likely. So let's do it. Okay, so I honestly didn't fiddle this. You know, I will put the Stoke squad on just to prove it, but yeah, I did not fiddle this. Stoke apparently are going to win the league, and I am not at all convinced by this, especially not by the points margin that's been suggested. Yeah, Stoke's activity's been next to nothing up to now. As I mentioned, Lee Gregory, he could be signing. We've got Adam Davies, and we've got Nick Powell on the horizon, possibly. The sources close to the club seem to think it's going to happen, but until it's crossed the line, I don't think any supporter of any club nowadays takes it for granted. But yeah, the outgoings have been what you expected, but nothing drastic. So I'm just not seeing this lead. I think we might have a good chance this season. I think top 6 is hopeful, but top 2 I think is maybe not a pipe dream, but it's certainly nothing I can believe based on what we saw at the end of last season. So yeah, I'm not believing number 1. Also going on to number 2, I do not believe Huddersfield either. I recognise they're a relegated club, but to have the points tally they had and then to suddenly finish second in the Championship, again, I just don't see it. They've lost De Poitre, and I just think even though he wasn't clinical in the Championship, the chances are that it's a player they've got to replace. So Carl, if I remember right, Carl Grant is his name from Charlton, who they signed. He could be a good striker in the Championship. I actually think that's why they signed him. But you think to yourself, even if Grant does well, you still need another striker, and I think that's why De Poitre could have been there just as a rotation option or a backup. So even though there's still plenty of time, the transfer window's still to go, which is the same for all the clubs obviously, I'm just not seeing Huddersfield second. So number 3, Fulham, and I actually think this could be realistic because I think the players who actually got Fulham promoted will stay, bar maybe Ryan Sessegnon and Alexander Mitrovic. I think Tom Kearney will likely stay. So I don't know about that John Michel Seri. I don't know if I'm saying his middle name right there, but I would be surprised if he stayed, but you never know. Might be a case of struggling to find a buyer in that instance. So yeah, it's a bit iffy with Fulham. If they recruit well as well as keeping some of the key personnel, they could really do well. But my suspicion is a few of those will go, and from there it all depends on the recruitment. So it all depends if, say, Mitrovic goes, if they replace him with a good striker or not. So we'll soon see, but I can tentatively believe that they'll finish in the playoffs at least. West Brom 4th, that's not a big surprise. They didn't lose too many to my knowledge of like the core group, as I call it. Yes, they lost the loanees who were pivotal, there we go, like Dwight Gale, but I didn't think, like, say, not Matt Phillips, he's already there, Jacob Murphy, that was it. I knew it was the speedy winger. Is he speedy? Anyway, I knew like a few like Jacob Murphy had gone back to the parent club, so maybe there are a few that won't be big misses, but yeah, I'm still thinking 4th is a possible for West Brom. I'm sure West Brom fans will be hoping to get 4th at least, but yeah, it's going to be iffy otherwise. So 5th, we got Forest, and I'm just not seeing that. I'm not really a fan of Martin O'Neill as a club manager nowadays, so I do think that is pushing things quite a bit to think, oh yeah, they're going to be in the playoffs. I do think they've got good players there, and if they have recruitment like they did last summer, it's not beyond the realms of possibility, but I just think it might be unrealistic, so I'm not saying that's right for number 5. 6, we've got Cardiff, and I think that is a high chance of finishing in the top 6. They've got quite a good championship squad from what went up and is going to come back down from the Premier League. Aaron Gunnarsson could be a bit of a miss for them, but overall I don't think it's going to be the biggest surprise if they get in the playoffs at least. It wouldn't surprise me too much if they aren't pushing for automatics. So now we're on number 7. And Sheffield Wednesday. Now, I could actually believe them finishing a little higher with Steve Bruce in charge. I know he had that iffy spell at Aston Villa, but I do think personal circumstances may have affected that. So I'm looking and thinking, yes, whilst he made bad decisions and it was just a bad spell at Villa, I also think that he is quite reliable at getting clubs into promotion positions. So 7th, I think, is maybe unlucky. I think if they get good recruitment, they'll definitely go higher. So Wednesday will want to watch in my view next season. Number 8, we've got Derby County, and again, I think this one's just a little bit low, purely because they had a good season last season, and I know that a lot of their influential players were on loan. You've got Mason Mount, Harry Wilson, Fikayo Tomori is his name, but yeah, I think if they can replace them with equally good players on either on loan or permanent, then there's no reason they can't do well. The main thing is if they can't replace them, obviously. So I would agree with 8th if they do struggle with recruitment, but as things stand, I would say it's not impossible that they could get in the playoffs. Number 9, this is the big shock of all, especially when I saw it, Leeds. Now, they didn't lose that many players. They sent Jack Harrison back to Man City, and I think they had Izzy Brown from Chelsea. But besides that, they didn't have a lot of loan players, and they haven't released a lot of players from contracts, if I've taken my notes down right. So Leeds in 9th is quite a shock. I would be very surprised if they finish 9th. Now, I do feel like they aren't guaranteed to go up next season. Even saying that's as things stand. I recognise there's a potential takeover and the offing with the guys who own, the royal family who own PSG. It could all be paper talk, but it could also be true. So I recognise all of that is up in the air. But if we're looking at the squad as it is here and now, with Marcelo Bielsa in charge, I still think 9th's too low. I think they would be in the playoffs, but I also think, there's no guarantees. So, like I said, be surprised at 9th, but it should be higher. Now, number 10, Hull. I think the game picked this out because of Jayden Bowen, and I think if he leaves Hull, they'll plummet down that table. So, I can understand why it's put them in 10th, but I just don't think Bowen will be there come the end of the transfer window. I would be amazed if there isn't one club in the Premier League at least who isn't sniffing around Bowen. So yeah, for me, I think Hull drop down in them positions just by the fact that Bowen will leave. Number 11, Swansea, and that one's a bit iffy as well because we don't know who their manager is. A bit like West Brom, so there is a comparison there, but with Swansea, I think that they are going to take a risk if I'm right. They're going to bring in the current manager of the England under-17s at the time of recording. I don't know if that'll change, but yeah, it sounds like they're going down the unproven route, and yes, it can work. I mean, Graham Potter was an unproven in English football before he took over, but I don't believe it's a guarantee of success by any stretch, because you could argue Potter didn't achieve success. They didn't even get in the playoffs last year, so I do believe 11th is actually a fair reflection of where Swansea will probably finish next season, because, I mean, I'm not a particularly Swansea fan by any stretch. I'm not someone who will be rooting for them, but I do feel for their fans in the sense that they've had a lot of bad hands dealt their way with the ownership, selling players, very limited recruitment. So just as a neutral, I do hope that they have a good season just based on the hard restrictions that have been placed on the club right now. Anyway, moving on, we're into number 12 and Preston. Now, I don't actually believe Preston will get in the playoffs this year, but I do think that this is actually a fair reflection. So I feel horrible saying that because I like Preston a fair bit. You know, as we said in the vlogcast, we have got relatives in the area, so, you know, they're sort of like a second team in the Championship. And yeah, I don't particularly like saying 12th, but I do think it's a fair reflection, just based on their trend of getting close but not close enough to the playoffs of late. Number 13, we've got Wigan. I would be absolutely amazed if they get into 13th. I mean, don't get me wrong, they had a good recovery at the end of the season. They beat Leeds, so it's not impossible that that could be the start of a good run of form. But it would have to be one really long run of form to maintain 13th. So, yeah, I'm not convinced at all that they'll get there. I think about 18th might be realistic, you know, just above the rest of the relegation fodder. So we'll soon see. 14, Reading. Now, I don't know a lot about the new manager there. I know that when we played them at the Bet365, Stoke v Reading was quite a bore draw. So I've heard relatively positive remarks about Reading since the new guy took over, that it seems a breath of fresh air compared to Malky Mackay. Well, not Malky Mackay, where have I got his name from today? Paul Clement, that was it. I think I'm going through all the rejects in Wales here. But yeah, Paul Clements, I didn't mind him as manager. I just think he's not exactly cut out for it in some ways. But yeah, it seems like the new guy, I'm sorry I can't remember his name off the top of my head, I'll pop it on the screen, seems to have done alright. So I don't know if they're going to do much better than 14th, but I think considering some recent seasons and their performances then, 14th might be an improvement. So maybe they'll take it. Let me know, Reading fans. Number 15, Borough. I can't see Middlesbrough finishing 15th, and it's not necessarily that I think they're going to finish high, but I just don't think 15th is where they'll finish as low either. I think maybe 8, 9, 10 is the more realistic expectation, and that's purely because when I'm ranking in my head where teams will be, I can't help but think that Middlesbrough are probably just one of those that are going to miss out. You know, I might be wrong, we'll soon see when I put the table up at the end, but yeah, I'm just not seeing them being that low, so we'll soon see. Number 16, we've got Brentford. Another one, I'd be surprised if they were that low. Yes, they haven't had great recruitment. I'm not overly convinced on Thomas Frank as a manager. I hope I got his name right as well. But yeah, I think if they lose Neil Maupay or even Romain Sawyers, I think they've lost too many players and they won't be able to recover. Brentford fans might disagree. Feel free to tell me who I'm missing out on. But yeah, I think their season really depends on keeping them two, or at least one of them two. Blackburn 17th. I think that's about a fair idea. I mean, I like Blackburn in terms of they seem to have no frills about them, which I don't mind in English football teams. They seem to know what they do best, which is just grind out results. And I think that is fair enough in the sense that they haven't been keeping clean sheets well, but they have scored quite a few to just keep the balance going. So yeah, I think 17th is a fair reflection for Blackburn. They might need to do some good recruitment in the window, but whether they do is another story. Millwall 18th. That is quite optimistic because by all accounts Lee Gregory was the main goal scorer for them, and I would be amazed if they managed to replace him on the budget they seem to be on, which isn't high. So I think just a little bit lower. I don't think they go down again, but I think just a little bit lower, and that is more realistic. 19, Bristol City. I will be amazed again. I'm saying amazed because this is what it is. I would be amazed if Bristol were that low. I think that, I wouldn't say they're going to be top 8, but 9, 10, 11, 12, all up for grabs. Then we've got number 20, Charlton. Out of the two playoff options of Charlton and Sunderland, I was really rooting for Charlton because one, I've never, as a Stoke supporter, seen Charlton, and also I haven't actually. Actually, the bottom line is I'm just actually fed up of playing Sunderland. The amount of times we went to the Stadium of Light in the Premier League, it just annoyed me. So, yeah, I'm pretty glad, as a Stoke fan, that we've got a change of clubs. I mean, I do wish Sunderland go up back to the Championship at some point. I'd just prefer it not to be while we're there. But yeah, wouldn't begrudge to either because they've had a rough time, but so have Charlton. And like I say, I think if they can get a takeover, even if it's, we're not talking about the sheiks of the world, but if they can just get some stable ownership that will allow them to buy and sell players of their own will, essentially, I think that'd actually be the best business they could get this window or this summer. So fingers crossed for Charlton there. 20th position, just for the record. I think if you gave them 20th, they'd take it. Charlton fans might disagree, but yeah, I think 20th would be a fair end for Charlton this season. 21, Luton. Ooh, Luton's going to be a fun one this year because I think there's a lot of expectation, and I don't blame them. 2 promotions from League 2 to League 1 to, they've had a rapid rise. So I can't blame Luton fans for thinking they're going to have a really good season this year. I think 21st might actually be too low. I think they might just finish a little bit higher. I'm not convinced they'll finish much higher though. I think it's a simple case of maybe swap Luton and Millwall around, just for the fact that I think Luton, like I said, I think they'll do well. I think they'll be a bit like how people at Blackpool would be in the Premier League. Not necessarily the ending Blackpool had, but the idea that they'll be this free-scoring team, but maybe they'll concede a lot of goals as well. Again, I could be proven wrong, because I know that Luton did have a good defence in League 1. It all depends how they adapt, and it's going to be interesting to watch. Even, I recognise there will be some... I wouldn't say rivalry, but there'll certainly be some interesting conversations come the Luton game regarding Nathan Jones. So I am curious how they get on. So my eyes are heading towards Kenilworth Road. Anyway, getting into the bottom 3, and I'm not entirely sure how much I disagree with these. Number 22, Barnsley. Now, I'm not actually convinced that this is wrong as 22nd. I think Barnsley have got the potential to do well, in the sense that they did well in League 1. If they can maintain that form and adapt well, then by all means they could finish out of the bottom 3. It's just a case of how well they adapt, and I'm not overly convinced. If anything, Barnsley, as I know them, are a club that tend to... They don't tend to play well. I'm really struggling to actually articulate this, but they don't tend to play well in front of small crowds, I find, and Oakwell never seems to generate a massive crowd. So I always have this vision of Oakwell being half empty and maybe just a bit of an atmosphere. So there's a bit of me that would like Barnsley fans to actually turn up in full voice and actually roar the way in the league, but I'm just not seeing it, and because of that, I don't think it translates on the pitch either. I mean, maybe I'm just picking on Barnsley a little bit harsh here, but yeah, I feel like I need to see something from Barnsley. Maybe in the opening weeks, I'll see some of their football and I'll go, wow, how did I get this so wrong? But yeah, I'm just not convinced right now. So hopefully Barnsley stay up, because I've got nothing particularly against them. I always remember that win Barnsley had over Liverpool in the FA Cup, but yeah, I'm just not convinced as far as staying up goes. 23, Birmingham. Now, I didn't put in the points deduction or anything. It's not as if I could, but I didn't do anything silly like that. And I did keep Che Adams on the side, and for whatever reason, it decided that Birmingham would still go down. So I can only assume it's a reflection of the fact that Birmingham do struggle. And you have to remember as well, FIFA's engine probably takes into account previous seasons, so it's probably taken in the season before Gary Monk was in charge, like a full season. And yeah, I think that might have played its part, but I do think Birmingham will be a little bit higher. However, with the ownership, you just don't know if there's going to be a problem again, so I'm not willing problems on Birmingham really, but I'm just not certain where they'll finish. It could be anything. And finally, we've got 24th with QPR. Now, this could be interesting to watch. I think QPR are going to struggle. I'd do believe that it is likely they'll be in the bottom 3. But it all depends on how the academy players do, because by all accounts that's how they're going to go next season. They're going to try and lean more into the club's own players, and if they do well, then obviously the club will do well. But I'm wondering if they're asking too much of what they've already got. So QPR I am worried for. I do think this could be a correct result, maybe not 24th, but the bottom 3. But that is also based on the season just gone, and I recognise having Steve McLaren in charge can be a handicap to anyone, so we'll soon see how you finish. Now, while all of this is interesting, the actual question is, where do I think everyone will finish? So let's put it up on the screen, and I've got Fulham at the top of the table. I think if they can keep the core of the squad that actually got them up to the Premier League the first time, and maybe just strengthen where they lose a few players, like I said, Mitrovic and Sessegnon, just replace them with half-decent players in this league, I think they've got the quality to get first place. Sheffield Wednesday have gone for second, just for the fact that I think the Steve Bruce factor will play a part. I've gone for Cardiff third. I think Neil Warnock again, he's a very seasoned promotion manager, so chances are he'll do it again. Leeds fourth, that's nothing against Marcelo Bielsa, all Leeds in the past season. I just think that there is a fatigue factor with him, so I'm curious if it'll catch up just a little bit. West Brom fifth. I was toying between putting Derby in fifth, but I thought I'm not actually convinced that Derby will get there. I'm more convinced that West Brom will push than Derby, so yeah, it depends what Derby do. I think if Derby strengthen, then maybe, but yeah, for now, West Brom fifth. I put Stoke in sixth. Maybe got a bit of blind loyalty there, but I'm just hoping that Nathan Jones has got a plan to get a sixth. So yeah, Derby fans, if you won't call me for that, fair enough. Borough, I've put them just outside the playoffs again, and I know they might not like that, but I think Tony Pulis was a promotion player. Yes, he didn't achieve promotion, I won't deny that, but I think he sort of had an idea how to do it. Maybe it didn't pan out that season, but yeah, I do think in general he knows how to do it. So it all depends who comes in to replace him, so we'll soon see there. Then we've got Derby, as I've said, 8th, so no need to cover that again. Forest I've put 9th, like I said, I just think they'll finish a little bit outside the playoffs, but not by a large distance. Swansea I've put in 10th, again mid-table, nothing too special. Preston, Bristol, similar reasons, I just think they'll probably push a little bit for the playoffs, but they'll get, just be fall away near the end. Brentford, I think they'll finish higher if they keep both those players that I mentioned, Neil Maupay and Ollie Watkins, did I say? Romain Sawyers, that was it, Ollie Watkins, another player. But yeah, I think if they keep those players, they've got a chance, but if they sell Maupay especially, then yeah, I think the 13th would be respectable. 14th, Huddersfield, I know that's a big drop from the Premier League, but I think with the quality of their squad, it wouldn't be a surprise to see them finish 14th. 15th, I've gone for Blackburn. I just thought maybe a little bit of progress from last season, nothing major, but just enough to move them up a few places. Well, I think it was a few places anyway, I don't know where they finished last season, I'm using the wrong table here. Anyway, carrying on. 16th, I went for Birmingham, and this was the tricky one because I had an idea of how the bottom of the table would look, but once I'd worked out the rest, I didn't know where to put Birmingham. So, as I said at the time, it's very hard to predict them, and I don't know if they're going to finish bottom 3, top 3, middle of the road, so I just went middle for safety, but like I say, they could end up anywhere. It depends how well Gary Monk can get the squad working based on what resources they've got, especially if they sell Che Adams. So after Birmingham, I've put Hull in 17th. That's just based on selling Jayden Bowen. If they lose any more key players, don't be surprised to see them drop further. Then 18th, I've gone with Luton. I think that'd be respectable for them at the end of their first championship season in years. So yeah, let's just see how they get on. Reading 19th, I've placed them a little lower than the FIFA prediction just for the fact that, like I said, they're a bit of an unknown quantity, so I'm just hoping it's a little progress. Let's see, then we've got Charlton. I don't think that's going to be a major one, but I think, like I say, if they can stay up, I think it's an achievement for Charlton, so let's hope for them, because like I say, they've had a rough few years. Millwall 21st, I think again they'd be quite happy to just stay up in the league and keep fighting, so 21st is about right. Then 22, Barnsley, unfortunately I can't justify them being outside the bottom 3. I wish I could, but I can't. 23rd, I actually felt unfortunate putting Wigan down there, but when I was thinking it through, I couldn't actually place them any higher than I wanted. I mean, I think I would like them to be out the bottom 3, but I can't actually give reasons why I think they will. So 23rd was the position, unfortunately. And QPR bottom, even though they've got Mark Warburton, yes, I did my research in between these takes, I just couldn't justify the idea of youth being enough to get them further up the table. So that is the list, and I'm curious what you guys think, because there's probably a few of you disagree, so let me know what you disagree about. It might be the whole thing, it might be one or two, so let me know. If you enjoyed the video, leave it a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to JJ's Productions for more videos. Other than that, thank you very much for listening. This has been Josh. See you in the next video. Bye for now.